It is Monday, March 4th, 2024. This is a new and improved edition of Football Today. You know that dude, Bobby Skinner from the Talking Giants world. I am Chris Rose, and hey, we're going to be like ABC's Monday Night Football back in the old days. We're going three-man booth as Justin Penik is officially joining us. He too from Talking Giants. Oh, hello, my favorite umpire at the warehouse games. How are you?
And what a tournament we're having so far, Chris Rose. You and I are both on fire. I'm good, man. Bobby, Chris, Mikey, hope all's well. Glad to be part of it. Going full time. The one thing that I'll ask, here's the one thing that I'll ask. Bobby and I like to ask this sometimes with Talking Giants. We're doing some different things with football today. The one thing I'm asking, if you've been with us, if you've been with football today, Bobby and Chris the whole year, send this to one friend. Send this to one friend you think that'll enjoy John Boy Media. Send this to one friend. Be like, hey, do you know John? Even if you like John Boy Media, hey, do you know John Boy Media does football and they talk football and they're kind of smart. Send this show to one friend. We're gonna try and grow it. We're gonna try and do some good stuff with it.
I love that. That's very nice. I love it. That's very heartwarming. See, it's already a win with Pennick here. That's great. I'll tell you what
They're already
video.
coming in with demands.
Yeah, that's not a demand. It's a thoughtful encouragement,
It's an
Bobby.
No, it's a
invitation.
demand. Do it.
Yeah, I guess it is a little demanding. God, you're so pushy already, Pennick. That's the way you are. I'll tell you this. I did have a video that I sent to a lot of friends this weekend, and it was that of Xavier Worthy, who set the combine record, which they've only been keeping these records since 2003, but still pretty damn impressive, a 4.2140. Now, I'm curious. I was in the building for this, so I'll give you my impression in a second. But for you guys, Bobby, like, did you jump out of your chair when you first saw it, whether you were watching it live or as a clip on social media?
Well, I knew he was going to test well, and Xavier Worthy's been kind of like my guy since last summer because we do a way too early draft preview every year in June. And I'm like, I think this guy's worthy of, no pun intended, worthy of a first round pick. And that really hasn't, that hype hasn't been there. And I've been banging that drum. He weighs in at 165 pounds, has the 41-inch vertical. I'm like, okay, he's going to test like 4.29 or whatever. But to actually break John Ross's record is something special. And unlike a lot of the wide receivers who have, you look at the top 10 40s of all time, it's actually usually a bad thing because they're not good. Worthy can play ball, right? Like he's a good route runner. He plays physical. And with, Tank Dell making it at 165 pounds and coming onto the scene as a star right away. You saw Devontae Smith at 10 pounds heavier a couple years before. I think the outliers at wide receiver are starting to hit a little more with the size. So yeah, I was pumped because Worthy's kind of been my guy.
And Bobby, kind of two things for you without you getting into a 10-minute eval of Xavier Worthy. Do you think he's relegated to the slot because of the size, even though he's a little closer to 6 foot? Do you think he's relegated to the slot because of his size and also because of his weight, and his inability to handle press? I mean, he clearly has the quickness for the slot. So is he kind of stuck in the slot?
No, I think because of his size, people will say slot, kind of similar to Zay Flowers last year. I think he's going to play in the slot, but he's going to play outside too. And yeah, can he get muddied up with press a couple times? Sure. But if you miss on that press, he's going to make you pay, right? And I think he can run the full route tree pretty well. Some little things he needs to clean up. I think he's a first round pick. And if this was last year's draft, I think he's right up there with JSN and Zay Flowers. He may have went in the top 20 when there wasn't all of these
Wow.
wide receivers.
Did you have
Chris, the
something
thing
else?
the thing that I think I was the coolest about that was the reaction to it. Like
Oh
in the
yeah.
moment, like we're this isn't just a regular 40 run and then the booth figures it out. Worthy walks it off, runs it off, and you even hear the crowd. And then I even had the thought of, if whether it's in Indianapolis, I know the NFL always wants to move stuff to major cities so it's more fun for the executives and coaches, right? But if the NFL continues to make the combine more of an event, how about even in person instead of just like on, watching it on television, where you have people reacting and it's like it's a still like it's an arena, it's a stadium full of people.
Hmm.
Just figured how cool that would be in the NFL. The NFL could pack a stadium for a workout in shorts and sweats more than some major sporting events. I had that thought and that got me excited.
So, okay, for people that don't know, several years ago they started selling tickets to this event. And then they started giving people the ability to listen to the broadcast so that they could be tuned into what they were watching. Because if you're not, then you're like, what the hell is going on here? Like, you just can't figure it out. So the big thing with Worthy was, once again, we knew he was going to run well. The first time he got a 4.25. When somebody gets that, they're usually just going to stick. They're not going to do it again. Well, then Stacey Dales reported, hey, guys, he's going to do it again. And you heard a buzz in the crowd because everybody's wearing, headphones, could hear that. It was I've never been to an Olympics, but I imagine that's what it was like. When he stepped to the line, there was this collective, like, ball of energy that just raised throughout Lucas Oil Stadium. And when he towed the line, everybody was like, we were, so heavily anticipating this thing. And then when he unofficially tied the record, the place went nuts. All the rest of the combine participants were going freaky. I have a video out of my social media where I'm kind of showing it. I showed it on the screen, then I flipped around. You could see all these people running to him like these little ants on the field. It was just great. It was so much fun.
Remember a couple years ago, the unofficial times were all wrong and they were all slower.
Yes.
And so part of me wanted John Ross to keep the title because, can I get in John Ross? And so it's unofficial tie. Like, okay, it's probably going to come in at 4.24. He ran a 4.25 or whatever, and then breaks it. My question is, was he wearing Nike, and does he get do they still give away the island?
Ooh, great question. Great question. Or
was it Adidas? I can't remember what shoe company gives away the island.
You know what, though? I do want to finish on this very quickly, and then we got to move on. I hate it when people are like, well, the 40 doesn't mean anything. You know what? Folks, just enjoy it for what it was. It was a remarkable athletic achievement. I don't know what Xavier Worthy's going to do at the next level. I know that a bunch of the guys who, ran a 40 in the 4.2s, with the exception of Chris Johnson, haven't done much in the NFL collectively. I don't care about that. Let's just appreciate the moment for what the moment was.
Also, like, I know that a lot of them haven't worked out, but a lot of them haven't had like the kind of the profile that Xavier Worthy has. John Ross bumped up because of the 40 time. The Bengals lost their mind on that. The other one who's like in the top 10 who had that profile was Henry Ruggs, and Henry Ruggs was playing really well for the Raiders before he all of his deal and ended up going to prison. So I think he's like the highest prospect who's ran within that time. Now he'll get bumped up a little bit, but the other guys like got bumped up because of it, whether it's Brashard Perriman or Marquise Goodwin or whoever.
Tyrone Calico, if you remember him, he was horrible.
Calico Cat.
All right, before we get back to the show, we got to talk about Factor. And oh boy, Factor has changed my life. I mean it. I spend my own hard-earned money on Factor meals because they are so good. All you have to do is pop them in the microwave for 2 minutes. I put it on a nice little plate, and I feel like I have a gourmet meal for me every single night. And people are loving it around the John Boy Media office too, because eating better, and it's easy with Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals. I don't cook, and Factor just does it for me. It's fresh, never frozen meal. It's chef-crafted, dietitian-approved, and ready to go in just 2 minutes. So many different options. There are over 35 different options, including Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. And there's 60 add-ons as well to help you stay fueled up and feeling good all day long. I want you to head to factormeals.com/footballtoday50 and use code footballtoday50, all one word. That's football today and then the number 50 to get 50% off. That's code footballtoday50 at factormeals.com/footballtoday50 to get 50% off. Whoa, you'll be glad you did. Back to the show.
Okay, so let's get going. Penik, I'm going to start with you, and then Bobby, you can follow up. We did get some news early Monday morning. Mike Evans, who said I was going to go test free agency, he lied. He lied to us. He stays in Tampa. The lifelong Buccaneer gets 2 years and $52 million. Justin, are you a little disappointed that he isn't headed somewhere else?
No, I mean, I like when guys stay in one spot. And even the Tampa Bay Bucks, whatever they do at quarterback, very dependent on what's going to happen with them as a team going forward. But they seem to be, a team that's not even up. They won a Super Bowl a couple years ago, but an up and coming team that took a step back when Tom Brady retired. I mean, Mike Evans, he's going to go in the Hall of Fame, and I think this kind of cements that he's going to go in the Hall of Fame as a Buccaneer. What he led the league in touchdowns last year, 13 touchdowns in 3 of the last 4 seasons. And there hasn't been a season in his 10-year career where he hasn't recorded 1,000 yards. I feel like these are the stats I feel like a lot of people know. I'm glad that he's staying with Tampa. I like guys that stay in one area in one spot. It was the only thing that would be interesting in free agency is that if he went to, like, let's say, the Kansas City Chiefs, which I'm going to be bringing up the Chiefs a couple times in this episode, but if he went to a place like the Kansas City Chiefs that needed a number 1 wide receiver, then it would be like oh my God, I would love to see Mike Evans with Pat Mahomes. But I like that he's staying with Tampa, stay in one spot, cement your Hall of Fame legacy.
Yeah, I agree. I had my notes done, and then I saw that he signed. Like, I'd like to see him be a Tampa Bay lifer. He's already got a Super Bowl, so he doesn't need to go ring chase. He's a Hall of Famer. He's 1,400 yards away from being top 20 in receiving. 6 touchdowns away from hitting 100 receiving touchdowns at 30 years old. No one's going to treat him better. And the only team that had more than $20 million in cap space that made sense was like the Jags to me, right? Obviously, teams work around the cap and teams like the Chiefs, but I don't think the Chiefs. We always put the Chiefs in this wide receiver market, and they've never have been in it. If the one time they were in it, they traded away Tyreek Hill. So I didn't see the Chiefs breaking the bank for him, and to me, it's the best fit for him. Are they going to go and win Super Bowls in the next couple of years? No, they won't. But I think he is someone who belongs to the Tampa Bay lifer. He's going to be a Hall of Famer, and again, no one's going to treat him better than Tampa is.
I would have puked if he'd gone to Kansas City. I'm going to be honest. Like, that would have been the perfect guy for Patrick Mahomes. You would have been like, oh, shit. Really? Like, this is the way it's going to go down? Now, Diana Rossini, Athletic, did say that there were several teams that were going to be nipping at his heels should he have made it all the way to free agency. The group includes, out of the good teams I'm going to mention here, the Chiefs. I'm saying the Falcons not as a good team, but it could be a very interesting team depending on what happens at quarterback. The Jags. And then the Rams. Could you imagine if he had joined Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua under a Sean McVay umbrella? That would have been fascinating.
I don't think it would have made sense, honestly. Like, he wouldn't have gotten the touches that Mike Evans deserves on that.
I don't know. I wouldn't have put it past McVay, but it would have been fun for a second. And then there were other teams that see him go to, put on her list. The Titans, the Patriots, sorry, boys, the Giants, and the Panthers. I wouldn't have wanted anything to do with those. I've been like, oh, Mike, enough. And I think it would have changed the narrative around him a little bit because people would have been like, oh, it's just a money grab. Well, here he got $52 million over 2 years, which is pretty good dough, and nobody's going to be like, oh, what are you doing? Everybody's going to be like, oh, yeah, this is great. He gets to spend his whole career with Tampa Bay.
Well, I love that the Titans' new regime is not changing anything. They trade away A.J. Brown, and they're going to pay every 30-plus yard, 30-year-old, plus receiver, top of the market deal. Yeah, with the Giants, we heard the same thing too, and we're like, why are the Giants in on this? Doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I'm just surprised the Jets aren't in on every free agent. It feels like they're gonna. I feel like I'm so excited for the Jets to make a bad wide receiver move this offseason.
They've made plenty of other bad moves, period. So don't worry. Just slow your roll for a second. They'll get there in about a week.
Evans would have been the best, but yeah.
Okay. There was also news out of the combine where Jerry Jones said it's not totally necessary for us to go all in and having to extend Dak. We can let him play out his contract, become a free agent, or extend him then at the end of next year. But we don't need, we are going all in. He said that he made that definitively clear, but he doesn't necessarily have to extend his quarterback. It sounds like Dak needs to prove something to the Dallas Cowboys. Is this the right strategy, Penik?
I mean, no, not if you're going all in, because his cap hit is $60 million, and they're in the red right now. They're over the cap. And the easy solution, and even with Dak Prescott having 2 void years after this year, the easy solution is, you push the money down the road, and that's what all in is. Now, I think from kind of this overhanging level, if the Cowboys were not all in, I'd be like, you know what? Yeah. This contract is, it's a lot of money. It's hefty money. And if Mike McCarthy is on this prove it year, also have the quarterback on the prove it year too. But then I'm thinking to myself, well, they're not going to change the GM. And the coach isn't the sole decider of who's going to be quarterback or who's not going to be quarterback. That's the GM and that's the front office, right? So they should already kind of have their opinion on Dak on if they want to extend him or not, and maybe 1 year shouldn't be the decider of that. So you just go back and forth on are you all in or are you not? And you can't be half pregnant. I think they're half pregnant right now. If they let him ride the season with this $60 million cap hit, then you're hurting your cap health for right now. Then you're hurting what you can do right now in terms of free agency, in terms of adding this team. Drafting isn't really the issue for the Cowboys, but supplementing what you can't do in the draft and free agency, it hurts you right now. And then you're technically not even all in, even though you're saying you're all in. You're half pregnant, and that's why you end up in, fifth, sixth place every single year, and you're eliminated in the divisional round.
Well, part of the reasons they get eliminated every year in the division round is because Dak Prescott, right? Like everything
Right.
on paper is like extend him is the easy decision, right? Like since signing the extension, he's fourth in the NFL in EPA per play after Purdy, Mahomes, and Allen. Easy, right? You have a team that is capable, like has a championship roster, right? So easy, extend the quarterback, right? You have $59 million cap hit, $36 million void year next year. Like you want to get out ahead of that. But they choke every year in the playoffs, and Dak is the front man for that, right? He's 20th of 34 QBs in EPA per play since 2020. He every year there's no excuse for them to lose games in the playoffs, and they do. The only team they beat in the playoffs was an 8-9 Bucks team. And let's even go to the regular season because he does really well in the regular season. I went through it. The last 3 years, what is the best team that they beat? To me, it was this past year's Lions. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that was the best team that they beat, and even that they won off of kind of a huge refereeing blunder. Um, but the issue is they really don't have an alternative. They're not in striking range to go get a quarterback unless they truly believe in Trey Lance, which I don't know what has been demonstrated for them to do that. But if they behind the scenes love Trey Lance, then I think it makes sense because like that continues to choke in the playoffs, and I don't see him. It's not like Peyton choking in the playoffs where he's like the best in the game and hey, 1 year he's going to figure it out. He's, you know, sixth, seventh in the game. And even if he does figure it out, it doesn't guarantee a Super Bowl that year.
Now, I agree with you, and Chris, I'll get your thoughts. I agree with you, but I think that they've dug their grave and they're lying in it. And I think that's like I just don't think you can go into this year with the $60 million cap hit, even though I do agree with you. Chris, what do you think?
Well, first of all, they can kind of massage it a little bit. We know that the cap is this thing that is somewhat real, right? They always find ways to convert money into this and a bonus and all that. I believe, if I read it correctly last night, that they could lower his cap number by somewhere between 18 and $19 million without extending him. So at the very least, it sounds like that's going to happen. The other part of this is I was sitting there thinking on the plane ride home last night. If Dak was a free agent right now, what does he get? Like, is he getting more money than Joe Burrow signed for last year? Like, who would do that? Dak is, I really like watching Dak. I think he's a good, solid football player. I think he's done a very, very good job being the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, which isn't always the easiest thing. He stands there, he's accountable, all that sort of stuff. And there's value in that. There really is. But just in terms of where you rank him as a quarterback, Bobby?
I like Kirk Cousins better than him. And Kirk Cousins is a free agent. Now Kirk Cousins is older and has the injury, so that muddies things a little bit. But I remember our first episode of this show, Rose, we were talking about Dak. And I think Kirk Cousins is a better quarterback than Dak Prescott.
Say that.
But I do agree they need to get a deal done because they don't have an alternative, right? And Dak is still a really good quarterback. He is a top 10. He does play really well. But not only is it choke in the playoffs, he doesn't show up the biggest against the best teams either, right? Like
that's a dangerous way to live. Don't you agree with it? It's like, well, we don't have it. That means you don't trust yourself and your ability to go pull something off, whether it's via a trade. We have seen quarterbacks get traded in recent years, or heck, even if you are picking in the 20s, there are quarterbacks that end up being great. There are.
Here's the thing is even if you do that, I think having Dak on the roster for that moment is a good thing. Because they're not going to tank. They shouldn't. Tanking is not the way to go anyways. You know, whether it's you have the young quarterback on the roster and Dak starts right away, or Dak is still really good and he's only 30 years old, so he would have trade value, right? Like there's a team that would like Dak could return a first round. In fact, he could be part of that trade, to get
Hmm.
that quarterback. So Dak does have trade value. So I wouldn't just let him walk, but I would be extremely frustrated because they've had Super Bowl rosters consistently
Yeah.
and they've never gotten past the second round.
Two
Okay.
quarterbacks now that they've had Super Bowl rosters with. And might I add, I think this is so important in this conversation. The cap hit this year, yes, and of course you can move money down the road. He already has a $36 million cap hit next year on a void year. And that's why I think they've dug their grave. They've dug their grave with Dak Prescott. They might as well lay in it. And if Jerry Jones is going to say he's half pregnant, you can't go all in with having a quarterback with the $60 million cap hit. You can't do it. Can't.
Could
In
also
my
be some
opinion.
Jerry negotiating tactics too. I mean, he played pretty hardball with Dak in the first
Mm-hmm.
negotiations, anyways.
Really did. Um, Last thing, and just a yes or no. Is Dak Prescott the starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys in 2025? Penik?
Yeah.
Yes.
Ah, yes, yes. I'm going to say no.
All
I'm going to be
right.
the contrarian. Why not? I don't think I even believe
Trey
myself
Lance
on
or a
that.
new QB?
Dude, I think Trey Lance is going to get traded. I heard rumors that there's some teams that really are interested in him. Don't be surprised if he ends up on another team.
And give us one team that might make sense.
The Minnesota Vikings.
Hmm.
That could actually make sense. Okay.
What year is he going into?
4.
Okay.
So you'd have to make a decision on his fifth year option if you traded for him.
I think they did it, didn't they?
I don't think so. That's like a $25
No.
million cap hit for a guy who's played
Yeah.
like 5 games. I
Okay.
mean, you don't have to make the decision until after the draft.
Right. That's true. That's true.
All right, welcome to the show, Justin. Why don't you shut the hell up for a second? Because it's time to talk about DraftKings. It's that time of year. The basketball season is in full swing, from buzzer beaters to jaw-dropping dunks. The season is on fire, and we've partnered up with DraftKings to get you in on the action. Discover the excitement of real-time betting by downloading the DraftKings app now. New customers get a no sweat bet, get a bonus bet back up to $1,000 in the amount of your original bet if it doesn't hit. Wow. Minimum deposit of $5. Sign up using promo code JM Football. That's JM Football. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. You can still join in all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have the shot to win cash prizes. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use promo code JM Football and get a no sweat bet. That's promo code JM Football only at DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. You'll be glad you did.
All right. Speaking of quarterbacks, we know that the top 3, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, did not throw on Saturday. Fine. You get to see them at their pro day. That should be fun. So the next group of 3, they had a chance to do whatever they did. J.J. McCarthy was out there. Michael Penix Jr., Bo Nix, they all did. Of those 3, which one has the most interesting story to follow over the next 6 weeks, or maybe even once they get drafted? Whatever direction you want to take it, Bobby.
I mean, it's got to be J.J. McCarthy. I mean, he's getting like top 5 hype at this point right now. Now, I think this is at the time of year where that stuff gets the most buzz and then things settle out, a couple of weeks before the draft. But it has, I mean, there's people on your network, NFL Network, who's saying that the first 4 picks could be quarterback. I don't believe that's what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But you know how teams get desperate, and I think it's JJ McCarthy. Like, I think he's going to go in the top 10 at this point. And I think Nix is not going to go in the first round. I don't think Penix is going to go in the first round.
And really, the thing with McCarthy, I feel like where McCarthy goes in the draft will decide the fate of Michael Penix and Bo Nix as well. If there's the run of quarterbacks, then it's going to be some teams in the back end of the draft, or maybe that are picking in the teens that whoever wants to target a quarterback and they didn't trade up and get one. Well, then it's going to be a race to get Michael Penix and Bo Nix if you really want to walk out of night 1 or even early day 2 with the quarterback. So McCarthy, where McCarthy goes, will decide the rest of the quarterback draft, at least in my opinion.
So it was weird. I think I said this on the air Saturday, that I don't think we've ever watched more video of a guy play as much as JJ McCarthy has over the last 2 years and know as little about him as we do, right? Like, you're like, okay, well, I think he can make all these NFL throws. Certain people keep telling me he can. It's just we haven't seen it a ton, and that really wasn't his fault. Everybody talks about the running game, everybody talks about the defensive Michigan, but still everybody loves him. Sounded like he interviewed very well. You hear that out of a lot of guys, so I don't know what to believe there. But I can tell you, guy
Yeah,
weighed
every
almost
year that
220
happens, and then we
pounds.
find out 2 years later, like, yeah, this guy's a horrible interview. Like when it,
Right.
like I'm tired of hearing this and asking players, how did your interview with the Texans go? Oh, actually, it went horrible. I think they don't have their shit straight over. Like when does that ever get aired out? Unless it's Ryan Mallett.
You know what?
Rest in peace.
You know what we need to do? We need to start recording these to then come out on a 2-year delay. These meetings that they have with the prospects, and then release them 2 years later. If we really want to make NFL Plus something big, that's something we should have, because I think people would pay a subscription to see some of those meetings. Wouldn't you?
I would.
Oh, I would love to get those. And if a team ends up drafting that quarterback, they'll usually put them out, at least snippets of them. But yeah, getting them from the teams that didn't them and passed up on them would be really good and bad, right? Like the teams that, passed on a guy who ended up being good, and then the guys that didn't work out. So. But hey, the best meeting was Caleb Williams picking up, greeting everyone at the end. That was guys 1-1 right there.
I will say this about Caleb Williams. He was there in his group on the field, cheering guys on. He was actually there Friday night as well when the defensive backs, because there was a USC safety, I believe, that was working out. So he wanted to stay there and watch his workout from the stands. And then Saturday, he was the last player on the field. He walked around. He thanked everybody who helped put on the combine down there, all the workers down on the field. He hung out there. Yeah, he had Taj Washington and Brendan Rice, who were receivers that were working out there. Took a nice picture with them. So I don't know. I just thought it was nice. I did not see Jaden Daniels there. I think he split.
Did you see the viral clip of Caleb Williams' first question at the podium?
Do you not like to compete?
Hey, Caleb, you said that you're afraid to compete next to your competitors. I thought that was. I was looking for a lizard on Friday because I was going to pick the lizard up and like yell at him. Like, people are saying you're a wannabe iguana and you're afraid to compete, but I couldn't find any lizards on Friday. I was literally walking around my house with my phone, my yard, looking for a lizard. Couldn't find one.
You live in Florida. How the hell did you not find a lizard?
I know. Well, see, I have a big oak tree, so they're not really always in the shady areas. They like to be out in the sun. So I couldn't. And I wasn't gonna like walk actual distance to go find a lizard.
10 feet?
Well, I looked around my entire perimeter. Like, so I got a corner lot over here.
Perimeter. We're setting up an iguana/lizard perimeter in Florida, guys. Be careful. Be careful. By the way, I never really answered the question. Michael Penix Jr. spun the ball the best out of any quarterback this weekend. He really can throw the football. Now, obviously, the big issue with him is the thing that none of us are privy to, and that's the medicals and how much that scares the shit out of people. I think if he had one less shoulder injury and one less knee injury, he'd be a first rounder, I guess is the way I look at it, because the ball comes out of his hand beautifully. Did you watch Penik?
Yeah, we watched him at Mobile, and we liked him. We even talked with him, and I thought he was our best interview that we did. Like, you can tell, like, I can see him succeeding, even though I wouldn't want to touch him with a first-round pick because of the injuries. And he's not the best creator. And he can move around a little bit, but he's not the best creator. But if there's anyone who at Mobile like looked good as a quarterback, it was Michael Penix. But also, like, say the Giants, right? The Giants have an early second-round pick. Him being left-handed, I know this sounds silly. The fact that we have Andrew Thomas, this stud all-pro left tackle, and then right tackle's a huge question mark. Him being left-handed kind of makes me not want to take him just for that situation alone. Right now, if he was top of the draft, you figure that stuff out. But if you're taking a flyer on a second-round guy, like, that actually weighs into my mind a bit.
Interesting.
I know we've brought up the Vikings a couple times just because, yeah, they're a team that's already good.
He'd be a great fit there, and they have two good tackles.
I was going to say, but you brought up the whole having a good left tackle situation. Well, the Vikings have two very good tackles, so the Vikings are a good fit for quarterbacks that may not be very good for a lot. Not, and I say very good, that may not be top of the line for a lot of reasons because they already have a team that has a good infrastructure. But especially with your tackle point, that's why Penix would fit there.
And by the way, getting to work with Kevin O'Connell wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for Michael Penix Jr. I think that would
right.
be a really,
I think that would be a great fit. The way their their plays develop, how they create pockets, and having Justin Jefferson and then Jordan Addison had a really nice rookie year. Like I actually think that would be like a really good fit for Penix in Minnesota.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to some of the rumors out there. Tyron Smith sounds like his 13 years of dominance down in Dallas is done. The left tackle is going to be available in free agency. Miami is not going to tag defensive tackle Christian Wilkins. So you're talking about a guy in his late 20s in the prime being available in free agency in a week. And it sounds like the Panthers have cut off negotiations with Brian Burns as well. Justin, which of those three stories is most interesting to you? Or was there one other rumor that you want to talk about?
I have to go in first here. I'm sorry. I'm coming in hot on this one.
Wow. Okay. Please do.
The Carolina Panthers need every bit of talent that they have. But Brian Burns is negotiating like he's a top 5 edge rusher. And he has this. I think Brian Burns, while very good, is the most overrated pass rusher in the NFL. I'm telling you, like I went his numbers: sacks, 27th, 8th, good, 25th, and 8th. That's going from most recent to back. His second year was his best year in his career, where it's 8th in sacks, 7th in total, sacks, pressures, and hits, and then 38th in win percentage. He's been 37th, 59th, 74th in win percentage, and total, sacks, pressures, 52nd, 9th, 21st, 7th. So he's a good player. But I put together a list of 17 guys that I don't even have to think about before, I would take him over that guy. Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, TJ Watt, both the Bosa's, Aiden Hutchinson, Trey Hendrickson, Zadarius Smith, Khalil Mack, Danielle Hunter, Nick Chubb, Max Crosby, Will Anderson, Rashawn Gary, Hassan Reddick, Montez Sweat, and Josh Allen. I would not even have to think about taking those guys. I don't understand why Brian Burns has this reputation as one of these top rushers in the NFL. He's a very good one, but I don't think, and he's not a great run defender either. I think Brian Burns is one of the more overrated players, but the Panthers are in a bad spot where they can't let any talent walk. But he shouldn't be one of those guys that resets the edge market to me, and that's what he's aiming for.
Who would you take at this point? Bryce Huff or Brian Burns?
I'd have to
We got to watch both. But...
Brian Burns, Huff has better like metrics and stuff, but I probably would take Brian Burns over Huff. But I think I have to think about it.
Right, and that's the point where you have Brian Burns that's looking to reset the whole market, and then Bryce Huff who's had one good successful year as a backup with the Jets, and you have to think about which guy you would prioritize at that point in their careers for sure.
Isn't part of the problem with the Brian Burns narrative that the Rams wanted him so badly that they were going to give up at least one first, if not multiple? Yeah. Like the deal that was on the table for the Panthers. So instead they hang on to him. They end up having the worst record in the league. He gets 8 sacks or whatever he had last year. And now they're going to, to me, it's just the sense of futility of the organization. And I know this is not on Dan Morgan and Dave Canales, the new leadership combo, but it just goes to show you that this organization is all over the place right now. They can't get out of their own way.
Yeah, instead the Panthers traded away DJ Moore, like one of the more underrated players in the league to me. That being said, I would match whatever the best offer that he gets on the Panthers. Like you've got to keep good players here. And they don't like who they have coming down the pipe that they have to pay. So I would match whatever he gets, even though he probably doesn't deserve it, because they just need to keep talent on that roster, and they don't have any of it right now.
Are you either of you guys surprised about the Wilkins news?
The Dolphins got a lot of guys that are being paid and have to pay, and Wilkins has been really good, but not great. But I am surprised. If I were Miami, I would do what I needed to do to keep Wilkins. Maybe they still will in free agency. But Wilkins is a pretty damn good player, and I would work to keep him.
Yeah, I think Wilkins is a really good player. An interior defensive line that can get 20 plus QB hits in a season. Now I know he also had, almost 10 sacks this year, so the QB hits are a little inflated there. But a guy that can get almost 10 sacks a year and then 20 plus QB hits, and I think the last couple of years he's had double-digit tackles for loss. And I think when you're talking about paying guys, the box score stats do matter. It's not just pressures and run stops and things like that. And Wilkins is a dominant player. I'm sure the Dolphins and maybe Mike McDaniel feel like, especially coming from that 49ers mentality, coming of, hey, we can maybe just find one of these other interior guys. We could draft and develop one of these interior guys as well. But the interior defensive lineman market's exploding, and if they want to prioritize some other guys, especially if they do like Tua and they want to work something down the line, then you got to save some room, and you got to continue to draft and develop.
Well, one thing that we all know Christian Wilkins can do, and that is find the ball. You can just ask Josh Allen about that. He can definitely find the ball. I thought the defensive tackles were interesting in this class. Once again, I don't know how closely you watched it. Byron Murphy is a physical freak. The kid out of Texas, he's going to be the first one off the board. I thought the guy that did the most, not in terms of raising his stock, because once again, these are guys running in shorts, but was an absolute marvel at this whole workout thing. And he played great on a very, very good defense last year, transferring into Florida State, was Brady Fisk. That kid really moved very well for a guy that was 292 pounds. I think that he might sneak into the latter end of the first round, depending on how many. It's so interesting when you talk about all this stuff and we're all trying to project. I feel like there's going to be 70 first-round picks instead of 32. Based on, some of these numbers, but you can't.
Which is the opposite of past years, where it was like, this guy's not a first-round pick, but he's going to go in the first round. This year seems like it's full of cats.
Well, no team ever has 32 first-round grades. They just don't. On a good year, you're talking about 22, 23 on teams' boards. That's how they, just in terms of people that they say, yes, he grades out to be a first-rounder. Now, of course, you're going to add another 10 players to the first round because there has to be. But that doesn't mean that everybody's got a first-round grade on them. That's what people understand.
Right.
Okay, last thing.
Justin's got
Chris,
some.
I'm going to take a time out.
Yes, please do.
Because I'll be quick with this. Because
Tyron
Smith was the player that I wanted to bring up first. Because he's the guy that actually intrigues me the most. I'm a little biased here because I grew up where Tyron Smith was one of the best left tackles of my life and my kind of like growing up. And especially I got to watch him dominate twice a year. Also, Cowboys would be on Sunday Night Football every week, where it's like, all right, you marvel at the athleticism of, DeMarcus Ware, bending on the defense side of the ball. And then you saw Tyron Smith on the other side just being like freak. I remember there's highlights of him just running down the field. I really think if he didn't have like some injuries in like the 2000 teens, I think we're talking about him having a Hall of Fame career. If it wasn't for some injuries and if he put together some 16-game seasons.
He's having a Hall of Fame career. You don't think he is?
Well, injuries are tough. And I think for offensive linemen, it's so tough to evaluate. You think he is, Bobby?
Yeah, and I think the pop of playing for Dallas helps him. Like I think Tyron Smith gets in. He like you said, he was one of the best for an extended period of time, and he's been good in the end of his career. My thing with the Dallas is I'm interested to see what they do with the O-line. Do they slide Tyler Smith out? Do they draft a tackle in the first round? Because there's those guys there too. Does Tyler Smith had a really good year at guard, but that doesn't always translate to the tackle spot.
Right. All right, well, I'm glad my love for Tyler Smith growing up is fully justified. I don't want to say he had a Hall of Fame. Oh, he had a Hall of Fame career, and you're like no.
Oh yeah.
I brought up the Kansas City Chiefs
Say
earlier.
it with your chest.
I brought up the Kansas City Chiefs earlier, and I want to bring them up again. Jawan Taylor, that's disaster, right? They right tackle at parts of this year. Donovan Smith was on a 1-year deal. Guess what team needs a tackle? And they're in a window. Tackle's a premium position in the draft where usually you pick them at the top, and those are the guys that hit, and it's hard to find some of those other guys at the back end, right? Chiefs are going to go receiver in the first round of the draft, go and get Tyron Smith, lock down that left tackle spot, and become even more of a force of a team. Go and do it, right?
You could. You certainly could. But I think a tackle's in play at 32. I really do. I know a lot of people are thinking that a receiver's going to end up there, and it could happen. But tackle is the single deepest position in this draft. I don't know, Bobby. Have you started doing your true deep dives on that?
Yeah, there's a lot of like usually it's not like that, but you have like Guyton out of Oklahoma, Mims, the Georgia cat. I love Fuaga, and then you have Olu and Joe Alt. Yeah, there's a lot of guys there. Um, but if I'm the Chiefs, like I don't want to really work through their struggle. I kind of agree with Justin. Where like I don't really want to work through a tackle's early struggles if I'm the Chiefs, and Tyron Smith would be a good fit for them. And I do think they need wide receiver too. Like they really need, like you can't live the way they did last year, especially with Kelsey another year older.
All right, I appreciate you getting that in on there. One of the real fun things that we've done with the 40-yard dash is do the super slow-mo and the simulcam, which is great. But over the weekend, Saturday, Sunday, we had back-to-back days of different sets of flowing locks. Saturday, you had Sam Hartman. He was the only quarterback that ran in his group. And then on Sunday, you had Wyoming offensive lineman Frank Crum, where I am not so sure that's his real hair. He's trying to convince Stacey Dales in an interview it is. I think that he went to Hollywood and had something put in there. I don't know. Penik, which of the two is the more interesting flow?
Well, I identify with Frank Crum more, just from a body and athleticism standpoint. So I'm gonna go with Frank Crum. I think my running face is a little bit better than Crum. Look at that face. But yeah, from an athleticism standpoint, I identify with Crum a little bit more.
Is Crum just like not going to get drafted and this is his moment? Like I want to look as insane as possible in the 40-yard dash and have my viral moment.
That's crazy. That's a crazy face.
He's probably a late round guy, and he's gonna be the darling of everybody's camp. He did a great interview with Stacey Dales on Sunday. Now Hartman, listen, there isn't one woman who didn't have something to say about him. You could
This is
hear it
true.
all over the building. It was the buzz. And I will keep that in the Rose household. Michelle Rose, my wife of almost 27 years, is like, that guy is an Adonis. So I'm walking through the convention center. I think I'm walking back from our coverage. Or maybe it was on Wednesday. Maybe it was the day before things. And who do I see walking toward me? None other than Sam Hartman. And I'm like, I will. So I had to stop and get this and send it to my wife. I was like, ha ha, sucks you're not here, I guess, huh? That's right. So there
He
you
he,
go.
he looks like the TV movie quarterback. Um, right? Like the star quarterback. He went to Notre Dame and everything. Unfortunately, I don't think he's very good. So that also plays into the storyline as like, the wampy, ugly second stringer as like he's gonna outplay him. Even Sam Hartman's the big man on campus.
Yeah. And I will say this, standing that close to him, he wins. He just wins life. It's, good for him, man. Good for, like, none of us are going to be surprised in 3 years when he's the bachelor.
No.
It's actually a good role for him. He flames out of the NFL. Maybe we can try and get him on John Boy Media football coverage.
Ooh, I like it. You know what? I should have planted the seed. Damn it.
You didn't put the seed.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Sure, he's planting seeds, though.
What I should have done was say, hey, Penik is making it a triumvirate now. Any thoughts of joining us, as a quartet now? What do you think? Like that could have been the deal sealer right there, Justin.
Me.
Yeah.
Me, the deal sealer.
No? Have some faith.
Show him a clip of me getting knocked out on the ground talking to Kelsey. Be like, this is what you can join.
Look at the athlete. You think you have some athleticism? Look at this guy. Look at this guy. Bobby, have you watched him in Blitzball Battle?
Oh,
have you
boy.
seen the little bat? People are
You guys made me feel bad because you asked me
Oh,
this, and
boy.
I haven't watched Blitzball. Sorry.
Oh God.
After the draft, he's got it saved up in the playlist, and he's just gonna run. He's just gonna run through them.
Yeah. Yeah. Just
Sitting on a beach in Florida.
Yep. That's it. Looking for iguanas /
Who won?
We can't tell you that.
We don't know
I was
yet.
thinking about possibly going to their watch party in Tampa. That's a 3-hour drive for me. It'd be good to show face with some of the guys in the company.
Be fun. That'd be fun. That's coming
Who's
up.
in that one?
We
Can you
can't say
stop?
who's in the
Matter
watch
with you?
party,
Are you
who's in
trying
the
to get us
championship
fired?
game. You can't say.
I'm trying. Okay.
We want this to
just
become a one-man show, like Mike Tyson's way hit.
me and Sam
Come on.
Hartman.
Yeah, I see you. Okay, that was funny. All right, so good first show. This was fun. Penik bringing some energy and some knowledge. I love that. We're going to do this later on in the week. We are taping Ball in Play, so I'm not exactly sure when the next episode's going to come out. It might be Thursday, it might be Friday, but we will let you know on our social media channels. So for our awesome producer, Mikey, and for the boys from the Talking Giants world, I feel like I'm butting in a little bit. Justin Penik and Bobby Skinner. I am Chris Rose. We'll see you later this week on Football Today.